Good morning. Coach Slack here once again, continuing our readings on the ascetical homilies of St. Isaac the Syrian. Today, on the 27th day of our readings, we are beginning Homily 4, entitled, On the Love of God and Renunciation and the Rest which is in God. The soul that loves God finds rest only in God. First, loose yourself from all external bonds, and then you will be able to bind your heart to God. Because the being bound to God is preceded by the being loosed from matter. After an infant is weaned, it is given bread to eat, and the man who wishes to progress in things divine must first be weaned from the world, like an infant from its mother's breast. Works performed with the body precede those performed with the soul, just as in generation the creation of the body preceded the creation of the soul. The man who has not performed the bodily works cannot possess the works of the soul, since the second are born of the first, like the ear of corn from a naked grain of wheat. And he who does not possess the works of the soul is bereft of spiritual gifts. The sufferings of the present age, undertaken for the truth, cannot be compared with the delight that is prepared for those who labor in good works. And just as the sheaves of gladness follow for those who sow with tears, so joy follows for those who suffer hardship for the sake of God. Bread procured with much sweat seems sweet to the husbandman, and sweet are works for righteousness' sake to the heart which has received the knowledge of Christ. Suffer contempt and humiliation with good will, that you may have boldness before God. The man who with knowledge endures all manner of harsh words, without having previously wronged his chider, at that moment places a crown of thorns on his head. And he is blessed, for he is crowned with an imperishable crown in a time that he knows not. The man who flees futile glory with knowledge has already sensed in his soul the hope of the age to come. The monk who says he has left the world and strives with men because of some necessity, lest he should be deprived of his ease, is utterly blind, since although he has voluntarily abandoned the whole body, yet he contends for one of its members. The mind of the man who flees the ease of this age has scrutinized the age to come. He who is bound by possessions is a slave of the passions. Do not imagine that merely the possession of gold and silver is possessiveness. Rather, it is the acquisition of anything, whatever which your will clings to. So again, going back to the title, On the Love of God and Renunciation and the Rest which is in God. The soul that loves God, the first sentence, the soul that loves God finds rest only in God. So again, as I've mentioned before in videos, this comes down to our motivation, right? Of which, as I've previously mentioned, the three motivations that I was taught that only exist in the world: fear, reward, and love. Each having their own place, but the greatest, of course, being love. And so when when I make my pilgrimages to the monasteries, it's really what I'm seeking is to find others who love God, not being a Christian out of fear of going to hell, or being a Christian necessarily just for the want of going to heaven or finding salvation. Of course, these are all, realities, but looking for those Christians who are just expressing their love to God and trying to reciprocate His love for us. So that was the first thing that came to mind when I was reading here. And to do this and to prove this to God, and really more than that, like a natural result of this love, you start to loose yourself from the external bonds, as he says here, thereby binding your heart to God. So if we're overly attached to the temporal things of this world, and again at the end he says not just silver and gold, so not just money, although that's some sort of frozen desire that many people attach themselves to, but anything really that's could be a collection of some sort. It could be, an over attachment to our home or our clothes, our cars, whatever it is. Not to say that those of us living in this world will not have these things, but the possessiveness of it, the over focus, attention given to it, that's distracting us from our love of God and our connection to God, and the realization that God is willing to provide everything we need because of our attachment to what we want. So really therein lies the balance. The things that we want and our over obsessiveness and possessiveness of these things, comparing to the things that we truly need for sustenance and for salvation, which God freely provides. So I think that's really what he's getting into at the beginning of Homily 4 here. And he goes on to say, the sufferings of the present age undertaken for the truth cannot be compared with the delight that is prepared for those who labor in good works. So again, here I'm reminded of many times the elder that I visit with and spend the most time with often tries to remind me of the vastness of eternity compared to literally the blink of an eye of our present reality, this physical life that we have right now. Again, comparing that to eternity. So the present age, so basically the present age compared with the delight. So again, he's saying here the sufferings of the present age. So when we're suffering for Christ's sake, meaning we're resisting temptation, we're enduring trials and tests for the sake of truth, right? Comparing that to the delight which awaits us in eternity. And then it goes on to further say here, suffer contempt and humiliation with goodwill, that you may have boldness before God. So again, it's easy to be kind and nice to those who are kind and nice to us, but really those who are chiding us, as he says here, the man who with knowledge endures all manner of harsh words without having previously wronged his chider, at that moment places a crown of thorns on his head, and he is blessed, for he is crowned with an imperishable crown in a time that he knows not. So again, as I was saying, it's very easy for us to be kind and nice to those who are kind and nice to us, but how about to our enemies or to the people who are not kind and nice to us? Maintaining that same attitude, that same demeanor, just trusting in God's providence, and to return evil with good, right? Because we cannot defeat evil with evil, but rather love conquers all, right? Then there was one sentence in here that really I didn't quite wrap my mind around, and hence it starts with the mind of man, so maybe that's my shortcoming. The mind of the man who flees the ease of this age has scrutinized the age to come. This one I'm going to have to spend some time on, but if one of you has an idea, please put it into the comments. I'd like to really dive into this sentence. The mind of the man who flees the ease of this age has scrutinized the age to come. Anyhow, help me out on that one. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.